Hey guys, it's Stephanie, and I know it's been a while, but I've been super sick, and you can probably still hear it a little bit, but I didn't have a voice for like a few days. It was pretty bad. But anyway, I'm here to talk about all the books I read in October, which is my favorite reading month ever. I read exclusively horror, and it was glorious. As glorious as you would think it was. So the first book I read was a reread, and I listened to this as an audiobook. It's the Audible exclusive Dracula, read by Tim Curry and Alan Cumming, and just a full cast of characters. It was really good. I noticed I have a few pet peeves with Dracula. Closer to the end, when they're trying to save Mina, and all of like Van Helsing and all their journals are like, Mina is so feminine and glorious that like we need to save her. And it was just so repetitive and basically made it seem like they were only saving her or only going to attempt to save her because of her femininity and purity. And I get that it was a different time, but I was just like, I get it. Shut up. Side note though, the first part of that book, where Jonathan Harker is at Count Dracula's castle, had some legitimately creepy parts. There's a scene where Jonathan Harker sneaks into Dracula's room and like sees his coffin and is trying to get the keys out of his coffin, and he opens the coffin and like Dracula's there like with his eyes open, like sleeping with his eyes open, and he's trying to like get the keys from his person. It was just, it gave me like the creeps. So I can imagine that whenever this came out, it must have been horrifying. So I thought that part was like legitimately creepy. Overall though, I mean, if you read modern horror books, this isn't going to scare you. But I'm saying if you're a fan of vampire literature, I think it's a must read. You definitely should know where vampire literature got popularized. The next book I read was Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix, and this was a lot of fun. I think every time I open a Grady Hendrix book, I'm like, this is just going to be so much fun. I'm sure you've seen it all around BookTube, but this is laid out like an IKEA catalog, and it takes place at kind of a knockoff IKEA in Ohio, where there's some shady stuff going on after hours, and like when the people walk in the store, there's stuff messed up. So the manager kind of assigns a group of people to stay overnight and try to figure out what's going on. But of course what's going on isn't as simple as like people breaking in and doing stuff. It's a little darker and supernatural. If you've ever worked a job in retail, you know that every store, every retail job has its own like lingo and all like corporate isms, and so it was just really fun to read, have that also infused into the story with the Basil character. I thought was a lot of fun. Also, I listened to a podcast recently that Grady Hendrix was on, and he said they are currently working on a TV show adaptation of Horrorstor, which is good news. I just want to know, where the heck is My Best Friend's Exorcism adaptation? Because this is the time of like 80s pop culture nostalgia, and I need a My Best Friend's Exorcism, like John Hughes-esque TV show or Netflix movie. Like, I need it now. That's the one I need. Anyway, all that to say, Horrorstor was really good. It was a solid like 3.5 stars for me. The next book I read was Snowblind by Christopher Golden. So this takes place in a northeastern, like a New England small town called Coventry, and 12 years ago there was a blizzard that came through and 12 people went missing in this blizzard. And you know, as the book opens up, we start out in that 12 years ago and we follow the different families that lost someone. And of course, because it's kind of a horror novel, you know that there was something a little supernatural about these people disappearing with this blizzard. So anyway, there's another blizzard coming that's just as sinister as the first. I thought it was inventive, like what actually happened to them and what happens with the people that went missing. Like, it wasn't what I thought it would be, which is always nice when you read a lot of horror, because you just start to expect what everything's going to be. And I liked this as small town literature. I really liked the reading different chapters from different people's perspectives. I really liked the characters and that small town feel that it had to it. I didn't think it was like scary. I thought it succeeded in having good characters and a good small town community feel to it. So I would say it was a solid 3-star book for me. And I recently did a video, a 4-of-a-kind video on like vampire books, and I know I got beef for not having read Salem's Lot or Interview with the Vampire, but not to worry guys, because that was remedied this month because they came in on overdrive. So I listened to Salem's Lot by Stephen King, and it was really interesting to listen to Salem's Lot like a week or two after listening to Dracula, because Stephen King said like that work was very heavily influenced by Dracula, and having read them so close together, I can definitely see similarities and sometimes the same type of phrasing used to describe people. And it was very enjoyable. I think I enjoyed his like Van Helsing group in Salem's Lot. Like I enjoyed that band of people that get together to fight the vampire. I enjoyed that group in Salem's Lot more than I did in Dracula. Like I was a lot more attached to these characters and I didn't think they were as annoying. Yeah, it's definitely going on like my thumbs up Stephen King list for sure. The next book I read was Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero, and this I think was a good 3.5 star read for me. So it's about a group of kids that used to get together and they used to kind of be this gang that solved mysteries. Very, very, very heavily influenced by Scooby-Doo. That's kind of the joke. If you read it, it's not like hidden in there. It's very blatantly like kind of Scooby-Doo fan fiction. So it's about this like group of kids who used to get together, like they had a dog and like a van and they would like solve mysteries. But there was like one mystery that they solved and then the group kind of grew apart. And it's a time jump. I want to say it's like 20 years later. And what's left of the group is getting together again, and they feel like they have to go back to where they solved the last mystery and confront the evil that's there. But yeah, it was really interesting. It had a weird voice though, where like sometimes you would be reading it and it would have like stage directions, like this character looks up and she has amazing hair, which we hear about her hair freaking nonstop. Like I get it, she has good hair. And then it would go to like normal writing, but it was just like weird stage direction, narrative, just back and forth, which I thought was a little strange. Like I said, anyway, 3/3.5, so what, like a 3.25 stars. The next book I read was Disappearance at Devil's Rock by Paul Tremblay. If you've been watching this channel for any amount of time, you know I'm obsessed with A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay, and I thought it was just a genius work of art. So of course I had to pick up another book that he wrote. And so I picked up Disappearance at Devil's Rock, which is about a boy that goes missing while he's out with his friends, and kind of the effect that that has on everybody. It had a real big Stranger Things feel kind of going to it, because we do see a mom who has lost like her very young teenage boy, and she thinks that he is communicating with her. So it was really interesting to see those similarities. Also, in real life, Paul Tremblay is a high school math teacher. I'm gonna assume this was real heavily influenced by like his freshman geometry class, because these teenagers were so freaking annoying. Like I could not stand to read the chapters where they were hanging out together, because I just wanted to punch them. They were so obnoxious. And there was so much talk about like Snapchat and Minecraft played a big part in this, which I didn't connect to. I didn't like that. And there was a lot of things as I was going through this book that I really wasn't a fan of. But then there were parts of this book where I got hit with like an emotional gut punch, and I feel like that is something I do read for and enjoy, and it did feel like it was earned, if you know what I mean. So as much as like this definitely wasn't a favorite, this is nowhere near Head Full of Ghosts, and it had a lot of things I like wasn't a fan of. Like I said, the annoying teenage talking, the Snapchat, the Minecraft. Also, we would read things in diary entries. So it's like, you know, we went here and this person said this and then this person said this. And so we're reading this as a diary entry. And then a few pages later, someone's reminiscing and we just see that whole scene play out again, but from like a different person's point of view. But it was basically the same. It was very repetitive and I didn't like that. So while this had like a lot of things I didn't like, I would still say Paul Tremblay's still a good writer, and I'll basically read anything he ever puts out, ever. The next book I read is Your House is on Fire and Your Children Are Gone by Stefan Kiesbye, and this takes place in a German village, and it starts off with someone going back to the German village where they grew up and meeting up with their friends for one of their mutual friends' funeral, and all of them are reminiscing on like horrible things they did when they were children. I wasn't a fan of this because every chapter is written from a different perspective, but they all seem to have the same voice, and they all seem to have the same coldness and distance when they talked about the horrible things that they did. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of empathy, everything was just stated very matter of fact. I just can't believe that like every single instance was like that. And I don't know, I grew really bored with it, even though this was like under 200 pages. That just kind of distance and coldness I can understand in like one or two, but it just became really repetitive, and I grew really bored with it and had no connection with it. So this was actually a 2-star read for me. The next novella that I read was A Stir of Echoes by Richard Matheson. This was really interesting. This is about a guy who goes to a dinner party at his neighbor's house that really didn't want to go to, and then the neighbor starts talking about how he's really good at hypnotism, and everyone has some reason for like why they can't be hypnotized. And so this guy ends up getting volunteered to be hypnotized for his group of friends at his neighbor's dinner party. And so his friend hypnotizes him. He comes to, and they tell him like all the weird stuff that they made him do, like walk on all fours, or if someone says this word, you're gonna put your shoe in the freezer, and stuff like that. But there's also other consequences to it, because it seems to have unlocked power to see things from the spirit world, and now he thinks there's a ghost in his house. So it was really interesting. There is a movie adaptation of this with, is it Kevin Bacon or Ethan Hawke? Somebody's getting complimented and someone's getting real dragged. So I saw the movie adaptation of this, and I can say if you've seen it, the book is very different. And actually, like, the cause of the ghost in the house is completely different than what it is in the movie. And I really liked that movie when I was a teenager for some reason. Like, we had a short story writing contest, and my short story was really heavily influenced by the movie Stir of Echoes. The next book that I listened to as an audiobook, I think I did for Dewey's, was Black Mad Wheel by Josh Malerman. I really, really loved Bird Box by Josh Malerman, so I wanted to read his next book about this Detroit band that gets recruited by the army to go to the African desert and find this sound that can be weaponized, and it just lost me. It was so confusing. Like, I will forgive a book a lot of things if it makes me think about, like, if it gives me something to like think about, or like really portrays like a truth about people and humanity, and like I emotionally connect to it. Like, that's what I'm looking for, I guess. But this book, like, when it got to the end, I had no clue what was going on. And I thought maybe that I'm just like too stupid because this was real sci-fi-esque, and I'm just like not a sci-fi reader. But as I was looking through, that seemed to be like a common theme. I thought it had really good pacing. The main character wakes up in a hospital with all his bones broken, and this is after his mission to Africa. And so he's trying to piece together what happened. So it's kind of like before and leading up to the trip, and then flipping back from the waking up in the hospital. So like back and forth in time, getting to figure out what happened. And then when you get to what happened, I was like, what? So yeah, not a great read. I gave it 2 stars because it was written well and had really good pacing, but no. And the last book I listened to this month was Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. I did it. I listened to it. It came in on overdrive, and I really enjoyed it. I think I'm really gonna like Anne Rice as an author. I really liked how she fleshed these people out. This, if you don't know the story setup, it's about a vampire named Louis. He's a few hundred years old, and he is basically telling his life story to a reporter and telling him who he was before he became a vampire, and how he became a vampire, and his life since becoming a vampire. And that part was really interesting, I think. From a philosophical point of view, you do get like the broody, self-loathing vampire in Louis kind of contrasted with the like Lestat, who's like super into being a vampire and being this like supernatural powerful being. And then with the Claudia character, I thought it was so interesting because Anne Rice actually lost her, she had a young daughter who died, and that's a very big inspiration for the Claudia character. So when you think about it, the Claudia character is a child vampire who was turned into a vampire as a child. So she will forever be a child. And just like when you lose someone like a child, they are in your mind just forever going to be a child. They're never going to grow up, which I thought added a whole nother layer to that book when I knew that. There was like a weird relationship with her and Louis. It was nothing sexual. There was no sex in this book, but there was a lot of weird eroticism just all around with vampirism, which was interesting. So I am on hold for, I think it's the vampire Lestat. There's so many books in that series that have Lestat in it. Is it just Lestat? The vampire Lestat? The prince Lestat, I think, is like way down the line. But I'm currently in line for the next one in the series because I really enjoyed it and I really loved her writing and the way she treated her characters. So I think that was like a 4-star book for me. I really enjoyed it. Anyway, guys, whew, that was all the books I read and all the feelings I had. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!